Welcome to the Hard Truths Podcast. I am your host, Denver Biddle III. And today, and pretty regularly, I'm going to have my co-host, Steve Traub, joining me. And today is the start of an educational series that we're going to start, just talking about, real estate investing, from a one-on-one level perspective. I'm trying to remember what I said the first time around doing this. We did not have memory cards in place and whatnot, so that episode is long gone, episode 0. But it was a good, it was a good little practice round. So now we're doing the real thing. And we're just gonna, again, get into just talking about real estate investing from a 101, a beginner, perspective. From this side, the lender, side of things. So you'll be able to get some insights from our perspective, some of the things that we look for, and we can, talk about these things because we have a wide variety of, real estate investors come to us with a, wide array of experience levels. So we know a thing or two about the whole process of real estate investing. So with that being said, the topic of this episode is going to be, it's called The Introduction to Fix and Flip Investing. So I guess the first place to start with this is actually defining, what fix and flip is. I'm sure some of you have heard of the term, but let's get some kind of definition in place. How would you define like fix and flip investing?
Well, thank you for having me, Denver. I'm looking forward to episode 1, take 2.
Right.
But no, fix and flip investing is a certain type of real estate investing that people will use in an effort to essentially buy a property that's distressed, renovate that property, and then resell that property for profit. So, kind of all over the country, people are looking for different things, whether it's single families, duplexes. Some people flip commercial space or mixed use. We want to kind of provide an idea of what you can flip, how you can do that, and then what that looks like at the end of everything, and frankly, how you get paid at the end when you're done with your project.
Yeah, because I think that's everybody's goal, right? To get paid, make
Absolutely.
a profit, right?
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things that you said that I don't want to assume that anybody knows anything. So just a couple of terms that I wanted to define. Number one, what do you mean by a distressed property?
That's a great question. So when you're driving down the street and you see a property that has longer grass in the front, maybe some peeling paint, some missing windows, so that property can be in a state that nobody can live there, or it could be a property that, say, an elderly person has held for 40 or 50 years. They've made 0 updates. Chances are there's a lot of garbage in the house.
Yeah.
So kind of anything from a property that no one's living in to something that somebody is living in that you recognize, hey, I can do this, and this as far as renovations go, with the idea that property is going to sell for considerably more than it would sell in its current shape. Again, whether it's outdated or completely unlivable, or anything in between.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And the other place I wanted to go was you mentioned a couple different kinds of like property types.
Sure.
Residential, commercial, and I think the third was mixed use.
Yep.
Can you kind of define those?
Absolutely. So residential is really going to be anything from a 1 to a 4 unit, say like a duplex, a quadplex, smaller apartment building with 4 units. Anything over 4 units in most worlds is considered a commercial property. So if you're buying an 8-family apartment complex, or you're buying, frankly, some commercial space, so some space in a strip mall, or a larger building where a company like us here are going to rent out that space. Anything from again, a company renting it to more than 4 units is considered commercial, and then mixed use is a kind of a combination of both. So. You and I have talked openly, but there's a project 40 minutes from us, commercial space on the bottom, so a store someone's going to rent out, and then 2 apartments above it. So anything that has a combination of a quote-unquote commercial space for a business and residential units is going to be considered mixed use.
Gotcha. Yeah. I see those randomly in the city. Like I'll
Absolutely.
see a bunch of these little, like an antique shop, and then I'll look above it, and I'm like, oh, somebody lives up there. That's kind of interesting place to live, but okay.
I don't know if it's you too, but when I drive past or I'm walking past, I always wonder, like, who lives up there?
Yeah.
Is it the owner just having to walk 7 stairs to work, or
right?
what's the story,
Yeah.
So
Kind of reminds me of did you see that movie? What is it called? Like Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like living upstairs.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Absolutely. So, and again, our focus is really for investment properties.
Yeah.
So anybody who's going to be buying this as an investment, again, whether they're fixing it, selling it, or fixing it and keeping it, that's who we really appeal to with these loans.
Nice. Cool. Okay. So we know what we're looking for, so to speak. Now comes actually looking for it. So how would you go about, what would you say are some good ways to go about looking for one of these distressed properties?
Sure. I think you've really got 4 options overall. Okay. The option that you and I, as we kind of drive around the city and go to see some projects clients are actively doing, that's one of them is driving neighborhoods and finding properties that you feel like are distressed and trying to get some more information regarding who's the owner, who would I contact to inquire more. So that's kind of on your own. We'll call that boots on the ground. Think about this though. If you recognize an area that's out of your state is a really good investment for you. Like, are you going to drive to Chicago to go and look for properties? Or you can use one of these other 3 options. Option 1 is a realtor. So finding someone that's local to the market with the experience level that you need, understanding, hey, this neighborhood may be a great flip opportunity. This neighborhood maybe not. So they can kind of give you some advice on areas that they feel like you're going to get the most kind of bang for your buck regarding your renovation costs. So realtor is number 1. Okay. Wholesaler is number 2. So say I'm driving around. I live in Chicago. I'm driving around. I'm finding properties. I can call you and say, hey, I found a property. I'm working with the seller. They agreed to sell it to me. I'm going to agree to sell it to you. Maybe I don't want to do the work, but I just want to recognize some of the profits, right? So a wholesaler is really going to connect you with the owner of a property and help you get that offer. But oftentimes the property owner is going to sell that property to them, and then they're going to sell it to you. All those transactions happen the same day. Yeah. So just kind of something to consider. And then your third option is really online, whether that's an online auction. So auction.com, for example, does a lot of homes, or you can, search property tax bills and get an idea of who's delinquent. Because a lot of times, if an elderly person lives in a property, they no longer can take care of it, they move out. Who's paying those taxes? If they don't have a mortgage, it's not the mortgage company. Right. So oftentimes, their family may forget to pay taxes, or there may be a tax lien for whatever reason. But kind of using those resources online to source your next project, it would be kind of your 4th and final option.
Got you. Yeah, that's a lot of different ways you can go about finding one.
Really, real estate is all about you being creative, right? And you finding what works for you, because you may or may not want to use a realtor. Maybe you don't want to pay their commission. Maybe you're boots on the ground. Maybe, again, you're trying to buy something out of state. You just don't have a great realtor there. It's really up to you to be creative and find your next deal, whatever source that may be.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's really just dependent on your goals, and then I'm pretty sure all 4 of these methods have their pros and cons. So just, again, aligning with whatever works for your situation and what you're trying to do individually, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say, moving along, we found the property. This is what's going to get our real estate investment journey going. This is what's going to make us $50,000 by the time we're done with it. We have to go about actually acquiring the property. Like, how are we going to finance this project? What are some ways or some financing options that a real estate investor can look into?
Sure. I'd say, you're going to want to look at kind of 2 different avenues. Avenue 1 is, what does this property need, right? Is it a property that needs to get fixed? If the answer to that is yes, then a lot of times you're going to use either a hard money financing option like us, or you're going to find a rich uncle that's got cash, or if you have cash, you can use your own money, of course. And then the second piece of that, if you don't need to renovate any properties, and we're going to cover this in a later episode, but essentially, you can buy an investment property and kind of use the rent coming into cash flow. So we're happy to walk you through both of those processes. Of course, what we do is hard money. We're firm believers in it, and we think that that's really a good option for people and allows them flexibility to buy more properties than they would otherwise using rent or using their cash they have.
Right.
So let's leverage your cash and have somebody else's money work for you.
Gotcha. Yeah. My, Scott, I was going to say my boss, but Scott talks about
our boss.
Yeah. Our boss talks about that all the time. OPM, other people's money.
Yeah.
I think there was I don't know if it was the webinar or if it was the presentation at the event
Yeah.
that he did that was talking
I
about
think
OPM?
both actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's lots of quite a few different resources, at least on like our YouTube channel, the Hard Money Codes YouTube channel, about OPM, and then I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other people that talk about leveraging other people's funds.
Yeah.
Also.
And I want to dive into just the financing a bit more. And again, we're going to cover a lot of this in future episodes, but just to give people, kind of the collective 30,000 foot view. So you find the property that needs the work, right? And how do you get that financing? So let's just use the $100,000 example because it's easy.
Yeah.
So depending on your experience, traditionally it's either 10 or 20% down with hard money, right? So let's just say you're a new investor. I think most of the people listening likely will be.
Yeah.
So you're a new investor. You're going to do 20% down on the property. Say it needs $150,000 worth of, $50,000 worth of renovations. So we'll lend you the $80,000, so the $100,000 minus your down payment, plus the $50,000 for the repairs. So we're going to lend you $130,000 of the $150,000 that's needed. So again, that's with no experience. Then how do you make that $50,000 work? From there, it's like you're either going to find a contractor, general contractor who's got the experience necessary, or if you feel confident in your own abilities, go ahead and kind of bite that off yourself. But either way, so we're lending you $130,000. The goal at the end of it is, every lender is going to be a little bit different, but we lend up to a certain amount of what that property is worth after it is fixed up. Let me ask you a question here, Denver. So,
answer.
When you're looking at properties, like, you and I have talked a little bit about the wholesale and kind of the renovation side.
Yeah.
What do you think is missing from people when they say, I just don't know if I can do this, right? It's you as a new investor, like what are you looking for in order to be able to kind of take that next step? Like
to
confidence.
Have that confidence, yeah. The biggest thing for, if I'm speaking from personal experience, it's probably, so one of the things that I think about is, what if I can't sell this for whatever reason, But then I think that just kind of goes back to problem number 2, or concern number 2, which is maybe a lack of knowledge. So I'd say lack of knowledge, and then maybe fear of failing, which would result in a challenging financial situation, and things
absolutely.
like that. So
and I think going to a couple of points that you had brought up, confidence is of course important, but I think part of it too is the people that you surround yourself with. Like we had gone and met with a customer that, he's done, I think 8 or 9 of these flips at this point. And he said, hey, what are you missing? He said, find somebody around you that knows what they're doing. And, going back to our podcast, we're going to self-gloat here for a second, but that's our point, is to try to help you guys get that confidence to be able to take that first step and go and find it. And I think it's also important when you're working with the lender. You had said, I've got some fear of not being able to sell this property in that specific amount of time. And, there's other options too for you to refinance out of it or turn that property into a rental, because think about this, right? We go and fix up a property, say that we're use that $130,000 loan example. That property's worth $200,000 when you sell it. So you'll get $70,000 at closing, right? Versus you going and renting that property for say $2,800, $3,000 a month. You may recognize as you move through the project that your initial thought of, hey, I'm going to sell this property isn't what you're actually going to do. So, again, confidence-wise, there are options for you. If your first option doesn't work, there are backup options. So I think it's important to kind of explore those, which again, we're going to do in a later episode. But, I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on, what it takes to take that leap, we'll say.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. That's definitely something that I wrestle with. And I have a million other interests too. So that's also another thing outside of real estate, confidence in my real estate investment knowledge, but that's, different topic for another day.
Absolutely.
Probably for my therapist.
That's the reason we're here.
Exactly. Yeah. This is partially therapy for us.
Yeah.
So with that confidence, just kind of, talking about that, I know in a social media series that we were doing, I know one of the questions that I asked was, is this something that someone with even though you might have all the knowledge in the world on it, like you've done, I don't know, you've listened to all the podcasts, you've watched all the YouTube videos, and you've done all the education. but you have to start somewhere in terms of experience.
Yeah.
And is this something that someone with no prior real estate investment experience can get into?
Absolutely. No question about it. Yes. Definitively, yes. That said, I think that goes back to our point of like finding someone with that experience to kind of help walk you through what this looks like. And we had talked a little bit about just renovating the project, right? So as a new investor, it's up to you, frankly, whether you feel the confidence to do this yourself, or better case scenario in a lot of places is hire a general contractor.
Yeah.
Use their experience to understand that this project's going to be $40,000, not $50 that you initially thought, or vice versa. Hey, it's going to be $60,000. You thought it was going to be $50. Is it still a project you want to move forward with? So I think doing your research and picking a good partner, whether that's a mentor or a general contractor, is something that, will help you kind of get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So, of course, it's cheaper to do the work yourself. Like you and I talked about, I put in some flooring this weekend. It was a third of the cost, but
yeah.
What's your time worth, right?
Exactly.
So just something to consider is, again, getting that general contractor and use their experience, for your benefit.
Yeah. So that's reassuring to somebody that somebody like me that has no experience, because you have other aspects of life, like applying to jobs, for example, when they say, oh yeah, by the way, you need 10 years of experience. And I'm like, nobody, like, what?
How do I get that?
Yeah.
You won't hire me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I didn't want to overwhelm everyone with the first episode. Is that, did we cover all the bases, or is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I'd say the exciting part of all of this is, like, let's fast forward to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
Is you selling that property for a profit. Like, nothing makes you feel more successful than making half or what you make in a year on one project.
Yeah, imagine that.
What does that freedom look like? There's a lot of kind of different ways to make money, right? But real estate is one of the most secure assets you could possibly use to make your money. So why not use it, and why not get the confidence to be able to change your life and hopefully change your family's life along with you? So,
yeah.
I do want to just talk about for a moment why I think fixing and flipping is more popular with newer investors.
Yeah.
So just kind of my perspective on this, but I think when you're talking about fixing and flipping a property, right, you have two options when you're done that we got into. You can either sell the property for a profit, awesome, or you can keep it as a long-term rental. What you have to consider when you're keeping it as a long-term rental is, like, how are you going to manage it as a landlord? Are you going to manage it yourself? You can use a rental management company. What's the story? So I think a lot of newer investors are leaning towards the fix and flips because not everybody wants to be investors, real estate investors, I should say, with a portfolio long-term. So fix and flip is a great option. Of course, the buying, fixing, and renting is a great option too, but I'd say get your experience with a couple flips under your belt and then start to rent those properties out long-term, especially if you're using a general contractor.
Right.
So, and then, we had talked a little bit too about kind of, we're going to call it like a barrier for entry, right? So when we had gone into like 10 or 20% down, like that's a very large barrier of entry for a lot of people. Is I don't have $30,000 sitting in my account, so I guess I just can't do this.
Right.
That's not the case, right? So we've talked about this too, is like bringing in a partner. Again, say I have experience doing it, you don't. We want to combine on something, start with a partner. Like, you got to get started somewhere. And a lot of times people that, have assets are looking for ways to make their money work for them. What's a better way, again, than real estate? So it's really a low entry level kind of situation when you have a partner. And then you can do one, decide if it's for you, and then move on to your second and third one, hopefully. So, and then I do want to just get into one more thing too, because we had talked about, this briefly, but I found this stat to be really kind of overwhelming for us. So in 2023, how many of the single family homes percentage-wise that sold do you feel like were flips?
I feel like I got pretty close last time.
You did, but we don't know that episode exists.
I know, so whatever. I think my guess last time was like 60%.
60 feels a little high, but that's all right. I would love for that to be the case. But 8.4% of all home sales in the U.S. in 2023 were flips. So one of every 10 homes essentially that people bought on the market was a flip property. So someone is recognizing those profits, right?
Yeah.
10% of sellers are recognizing those profits. Why wouldn't you want to be part of that 10%?
Right.
And then I know we're in Wisconsin. I'm assuming people are kind of all over the place, which is great. Average gross profit for flip, what do you think that number is across the United States?
I think this is where I got the 60 mixed up.
Yeah, you're close.
Yep. I'm going to dial it back and say 50K.
The average gross profit from a flip was 66 grand.
Oh, up. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I was closer before.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd rather, we want to shoot low, right? And then you're high. And
I look like an idiot. So,
no,
but that's okay.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
Hey, we're first time investors.
I'm a
here.
beginner. Yeah. Yep.
That's fantastic. But I found those to be really kind of eye opening, right? Like, let's just say we are in Wisconsin, frankly. Say our average, gross profit is half of that. How many houses do you have to flip in 12 months to make what you're making at your job right now, working a 9 to 5? I don't need you to answer that. But
yeah, I'm not
you guys can answer that in your head.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy, man. I mean, you're making 30, 35K a flip.
Jeez.
2 of those, right? You're making what you'd make working a $30 an hour job.
Yeah.
It's craziness.
Man. Yeah, because that's probably places like California and places with higher average home costs are probably driving that average up. But even like you said, 30, 40K a flip is crazy.
I mean, yeah, and our average loan amount here is right around 200 grand.
Yeah.
So I'd say kind of across the United States, sure, California certainly I call it an outlier, but some of the other stuff, sure, we absolutely do $1 million properties, but we do a lot of $40,000 properties too. Right. It's just, does the deal make sense or not? So I'd encourage everyone to kind of at least explore this, and talk to somebody and see what they did on their last flip and get yourself motivated. Yeah,
because then you have your goal, something to shoot for, right? It's like, all right, well, if I'm trying to replace my 9 to 5 salary, you got your target number there, and then you can just go from there. A lot of times, if you're averaging based on the average salary here, and the average flip, the gross profit, that's 2 homes.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll even break this down further. So last year, the average American family of 4 takes on $900 a month in debt. So you're not floating, you're sinking. Right. So let's just take the $30,000 a year. You do one flip, right? You do one flip, $1,500 a month in savings. Not to mention the $900 that's going out the door that you're not even seeing, right? Or adding to a credit card, paying 30% interest or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's family changing money in most situations. So pretty cool to kind of see it broken down even further.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, I'm sitting and marinating on that.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess the next question would be to kind of wrap things up. Yeah. What would you say would be the, because we like action items, right? We like takeaways, tangible things that people can do after what we teach them. So what would you say would be the first or maybe first couple of things that a beginner listening to this podcast should do upon finishing the episode?
That's a great question. Tune in for episode 2, number 1.
There we go. Subscribe.
Yeah, there you go. But a couple of things you could do is, for example, there's a lot of local groups. Like there's a RIA event here coming up a week from today. Go to those events, and, talk to your peers. And there's people at these events that are free to attend that are going to have that experience. Like go and talk to somebody and figure out someone in your local market that's doing this. If you don't want to talk to anybody because you're sitting in your house, no problem. Then go online. Go to one of the auction websites and just go and test drive a property. Go find a property for $50,000 that you think needs $100,000 worth of work. Let's just say it's in Milwaukee, and then go and look on Zillow. I don't love Zillow, but it's a tool.
Yeah, it's free.
It's free, right? Free, Realtor.com, either one of those. But go on those websites and look at comps, right? And a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right, in Milwaukee, that's fully fixed up. What's that property worth? And then this property you found online, how much does it need in work in your opinion? And just see if those numbers work. I think the more deals that you can look at, the more experience you get, but you got to start with just one one deal. Look
Yeah.
at one deal in the next week. It's
Yeah.
10 minutes out of your day.
Yeah, and we'll even so I actually like kind of designed a webinar specifically about knowing if you have a deal or not, and talking about how to truly go about like finding actual comps. And we'll talk about that in another episode, because again, that can just be, we can get Brett in and talk about property valuation for like a half an hour or plus. But there's a bunch of videos on YouTube and, you know, TikTok if you don't want to watch the full 10, 20, you know, minute long video. But that's definitely something that you should do. I think Justin was his name, the guy that we, you know, we saw his place. His biggest takeaway or in terms of advice for beginners is learning your numbers, because that's going to make or break your deal. Like if you're overvaluating a property, you know, there goes your margin right there.
You're in trouble.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, you know, shout out Justin. But I think it's important to note, you know, he started from where a lot of our listeners and like you and I are at right now. He started not doing this.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're talking to him, and he's got a project going with us. His project we just visited is getting listed here in the next week. He's looking at another project. Like, you know, the guy is moving at a pretty rapid pace, which is really cool to watch.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think 3 years ago, he started nowhere. Like, as a brand new investor.
Right.
Here he is. So, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's possible. People are doing it, and we're funding beginners every month.
Almost every day.
Almost every day.
Yeah. And nothing cooler than watching someone, you know, where they started to where they're going. You know, we want to be a resource, and I think your lender should be a resource, right? That's why we're here. So
yeah, that's one thing that separates us, is we're not just, you know, like, yeah, we're a bank, but we're also we also have the knowledge base and the capacity to help you through every step of the way. So if you ever have any questions along the way, feel free to reach out to us, and our team is very knowledgeable and can help clear up anything that comes up along the path.
Awesome.
So,
and then, do you know what we have coming up for the next episode?
I was just going to ask you that.
Okay. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of the hard money loans, kind of how they work, you know, what you're going to need to qualify regarding cash, credit, some of the inner workings of a loan, really. And then the most important part is just understanding how that hard money loan can help you fund your first fix and flip project. So looking forward to that episode, and appreciate the time, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I foresee lots of shameless plugs in that episode. So
yeah, 100%. So speaking of shameless plugs, give them our website, give them our handles.
Oh, yeah. So if you are, for whatever reason, let's say you're not a super new green beginner and you think you might have a property that you'd like to see if, you know, you could get approved for, you can go to The Hard Money Co., thehardmoneyco.com. And our handles on Instagram, YouTube, basically any social media platform is just at The Hard Money Co. So the exact same as the domain name. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Always.
And catch us in episode 2, talking more about hard money loans and diving into the specifics. So until next time, peace.
Thank you, everybody.